Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you all for coming. It's nice to be invited. I'm going to show you two things which are not finished, but there again, maybe things never get finished. This is a pointer, yeah? Okay. So, okay. Okay, so the name of the lecture, the title of the lecture is Picture Window. So the thrust of it is about pictures and windows. The first thing I'm going to show you is a cinema, which is not finished, as I said. It's shell and core, but it addresses the subject, I think, as a cinema should. It's in the west coast of Ireland, in a city called Galway. So this is the Atlantic, the docks, and this is the Corrib River, which rushes fast into the sea. And it's a medieval town, essentially, with lots of fragments in it. And our site is here. So what has in the west of Ireland, curiously, there's a very strong film culture. And there's a very well-known film festival called the Galway Film Fleadh, and there are various city and county and Connacht-wide organisations that are devoted to the showing and discussion of and the education through art house cinema. And in about 10 years ago, there was an EU directive which advanced that centres of population over a certain level, that there was grant funding available to promote the construction of cinemas that would only show European film, as a pushback against Hollywood, effectively. And so my clients bought this house here, which is on the edge of the old town and beside a museum and so on. And as an urban plan, the idea is that it's a gateway between this docklands here and the old town, as we say. It was very expensive and too small for the brief, but the argument always had to be that that the building could not be a black box on the edge of town. It had to be a public house in the proper sense. So I think that slide is back to front, that last one. So here you see on the little red X, this is a 1920s map, but you can see that this is an archway. So I want you to remember the archway because you'll see it later to locate yourself. And you can see that this is Merchants Road, this is Georgian on the edge of town, all infill. And later on, a road is broken through here and exposes the edge of our site, which is effectively a merchant's house and garden. Modest 1820s, three-storey with a carriageway and a back return. So here we are again. If I can get this, there you are there. That's the site as it's found. So here you see the road going through it. So this gable is exposed. These little houses here, we want to support them, so we're asked to keep the front building. So the question is how to make a three-screen cinema, public bar, cafe, and ancillary facilities in this very small plot of land. Here is the famous Spanish Arch. Here is the main drag of Shop Street. All around the city you'll find bits of medieval fragments, tower houses, and so on. So the project becomes this, where we keep the front building in facsimile or facsimile isn't quite right either, but we keep its ghost, we keep its proportions, the front facade, but rebuild it in concrete and tooth back in its windowsills, its dentistry basically, all its arches, and then we make a tall building behind it, which takes the body of the cinema itself. In Galway, like all around County Clare, County Limerick, and the surrounding areas, there's a plethora of tower houses which were generally built in the 15th century, and they're stacked. They're stacked small castles, generally in the landscape, and they have the sort of order of being room upon room upon room, with then a thickened wall all the way around, which takes the stairs, the toilet, etc., etc. It's kind of a Louis Kahn kind of a plan. It was a good strategy for arguing for a taller building in Galway, which is very low, and in fact, there were tower houses there. This is a very early drawing, and you can see one here. Oops. Where is that? You can see one here, embedded into the fabric of the city. But so the idea was that we could perhaps stack the cinemas as a tower house typologically as well as iconographically behind the existing walls of the town. So we extruded the ground plan up. We had no room, so we just took the boundary condition, extruded it up, put a pitched roof on top of it, and a weather vane to give it silhouette into the town. So the diagram then becomes the biggest room you can make, biggest clear room that you can make, and then you pack all the edges, all the residual spaces with projection box, lift, disabled access, stairs up. This is the top room plan. A void here which lights this space here, which has a stage in it. The top room has a stage for interviews and so on. This is a stack effect chimney which looks off this lobby down into the bar, and then this roiling staircase here. So very simply, biggest room you can, 178 seats. No, sorry, 78 seats here, and then everything else is servant. So you have served and servant every time. So, and then in the city, it's made in situ concrete. It's a monolith. Structurally, it operates as one thing. It couldn't be depropped until it was all poured. It has a very traditional slate roof in it, as I say, and a weather vane, which is a lightning conductor. So it sits as a public building in the town. The other thing that it had to do was not be a black box, in that it had to have eyes or windows. What's going on? Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Great, thanks. So it sits there anyway, and you catch views of it as you go around the place. It's a small town anyway. But the building isn't interested in telling you how to use it. It isn't very clear initially how you get into it. It's more like a piece of town. And in fact, only the rooms, the acoustic and the acoustically tempered rooms are also thermally tempered. All the staircases, the foyer, in fact, the kiosk, in fact, all of that are treated as street. Varies. Some of it's fully exposed, some of it's just sheltered, some of it's roofed and glazed, but unheated. And so until you get into that moment when you enter the cinema and the sound changes, the door opens with a kind of a sigh, and you're in this upholstered room. So it sits in the town like so. And then it turns. The building has a south. This is south, and south light is very precious. This is a very wet part of the world, very grey part of the world. So the project seeks to behave as a building in the round, as an object, but in fact it's in a party wall condition. It's a corner site. And then it also seeks to open itself to the south light and then drag that light across the section as deeply as it can through the servant spaces. And then it also wants, the client called it the Picture Palace, which immediately has, evokes, it's an old title really for that time, maybe in the 1920s, when theatres started to be used as cinemas. So you still have the deluxe kind of grandeur of letters on the facade, the architecture of posters, the architecture of linings, the architecture of a kind of a cheap glamour of, like there's neon letters to go in here in Paulos. So it's interested in those things, but in a reduced way. And then it's interested in making maybe bad jokes. Like, you see this Paulos, this is white neon, but the fada, do you have diacritics in German? Diacritics? Like the umlaut, isn't that a diacritic? Yeah. Well, we have the fada, which is the long, it makes a sound longer. So, so the A has a fada, so there's a green neon to go in there. And there's another one here, Paulos, so it makes palace, Oscailge, Paulos, yeah? So this is the Irish version of it as you come into the town. I should say Galway is very proud of its tradition as being a Gaeltacht, a place where Irish is spoken just as much as English. So the signs are in English and in Irish. And then at the back, you start to see the air conditioning expressed as these grills that move around the place. And then it's undercut down here. This is the cafe on the street. And over here you see Paulos written again, and that's the air intake. That's a fresh air intake as the sign into the cinema below ground. So it has a tendency towards a keep or a silo or a defensive object that's then within itself porous and very three-dimensional, in that the inside is the inside of the outside and the outside that of the inside as you move around it. So it has a counterpoint between they're not necessarily convoluted to get the circulation to move through these small spaces between the room and the street and the room and the outer and the curtain wall. The thing becomes very, very three-dimensional. But then the rooms themselves are very calm. And it expresses this in ways that, for instance, because it's a palace, or supposedly a palace, it has to, I thought, have a cornice. So you can see it has this little galvanized trim all around the edge, which allows the pyramid roof to just slide over. And then on top of it, it has this silhouette of a woman chasing herself with a cone of vision as an eye around the north point. All again in galvanized steel, all very matter of fact. So the section, therefore, is where's my red dot? Oh yeah. So underground, big cinema. The old building facade is here. It's then eroded like this down to become a kiosk. This is a void, which is the foyer. This is the one staircase which goes up through and up into the top room here, which you saw the plan of. This is the middle cinema here. This is the bar here. This is the tea room here, and again we're back to the cinema. And then there's a back stairs which moves around this. What you're seeing here is the projection. So you can start to see the poche of the object, the kind of struggle between the rooms, the tempered rooms within the outside and the enclosure. So that's all outside. Everything is outside. You can see where the insulation is in this, and likewise all the way down here. And likewise, the front door of this old house goes all the way down here, and you go inside at this point here. So the ground floor plan, that's that stairs that was just saying that's rolling down there and back out here in the projection. And then this is the plinth level or the street level, and you can see, I hope, this is the archway. So these stones are existing, and then we just manipulated inside. So this facade is remade, and then adjusted as it comes through here. So that's where you buy your ticket and your coffees and so on. This is the foyer that's outside. The building is kind of roiling around above you here. You come in this back door here, or go up this back stairs here. This back stairs is outside and leads to a smoking area and a back bar. But this one comes in and starts going up this way. This is the tea room, which has a little chandelier in it. And then that goes back down here to the main cinema below, or else back up to the bar here. This is a ramp, and this is stairs, and this is the pavement. So then when you go up, you've come up here, and you can go into the bar. Or you can go into, this is basically the institution. There's an office up here and there's an archive, and you can look up old films like, I don't know, Quiet Man, things like that, Irish film, and so, but particularly about the west of Ireland. Or you can stand here and look at people coming up this alleyway, basically, to this back area where you smoke into the bar, or else this back stairs that starts up and starts moving around. So as you can see, the thing actually is that, I don't know if you know that sense of you go to the theatre and the show is over and you end up going back out an emergency exit or a back exit, and you end up back on the street suddenly in a place that you didn't expect to re-encounter in the way that you did. That the thing actually is very, very urban and scenographic as it moves you around the place, because there are I'll show you, but there are cross views, like there are cross views down in various places here, 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 and so on. In the bar itself adopts the traditional Irish kind of pub interior, which is domestic. It's kind of like a wooden architecture at the scale of the body, often classical, very ordered by kind of a proscenium of a bar, snugs, partitions, dados, skirting, shelves that you can put your glass on. Very intimate, very, very close, very, very small, but room-based. So they're rooms that are connected, but not quite. So you get the snug, the smallest room with the best seat to get. There's another room here. Off it, there's another room here that's double height. There's a tiny room here, and so on. And so it kind of generates another kind of an architecture within itself of linings, which is another idea in the building, that every material is independent of the other. So you have the concrete frame. Then you have and then the relative positions of, say, the windows, the timber linings, the velvet in the cinemas, and so on. That they're all set across one another and occasionally disagree with one another. So, in other words, that their tolerance is quite extreme. So when you go up that staircase, you turn into the middle. You're into the middle cinema here, and back on up, which pinches into the space here, and up the top one, or else you're again repositioned on that solar stack, and there's the stairs at the back. And then this is the roof plan, as I said, oriented north pyramid. And then the silhouette of the building in the town is simply the consequence of the irregular plot being pushed through the notion of a pyramid roof. And then it's sort of anxious to get into the photograph of the town. It sneaks, it's pushing over here on the front, trying to lure the main drag down towards the docks. And you can see there that on that side it says Palace. Again, that will be a neon, and the sea is the sea that you have to see through in that window there. And so that's the relationship between the old one, inverted commas, and the new one behind. So this one is rendered because it's part of that street, but then it turns a corner and gets through, and it's cut very short to make a gable. These kind of gables with writing on are very, well, I suppose they're very traditional everywhere, but in particular in Ireland they have a thing, gables with signs. And then the building behind takes its, it basically, it cantilevers over the street where it can, it slips under the pavement where it can. It's just very, very alert to space and very anxious to get as much light as it can into itself. So the archway is then, in plan, mirrored to become, I suppose, a forced perspective, and then lined, and then the window becomes blinded to the stairs. Sorry, not blinded, but open to the stairs. So this becomes a new kind of a portico in the kind of body of the town. And then you start to go up, and it's, you know, the limestone is only used on the pavement generally, but just to make something special there. And then the rest of it is shot blasted concrete, sometimes polished, sometimes scabbled. So you can see there the stairs going up to the bar again. So this is all outside, and there's a gate. And so that's that space there you're looking at. And there's that stairs going up to that back bar there. And this section is cut in a funny place, but I just think this is interesting the way, you know, this is all basically focused on the lens of the arch and the window above it of the old building. So again, all the staircases where they're public are, the underside is expressed as that of the oversized. So you start to get into kind of ideas of the front staircase being a landscape object, you know, like an expressionist set, and that the back stairs then is a tall volume with a metal stairs spanning in the room. This is a publicity shot, but it shows that they quarried the bottom cinema out of the granite. And then the rooms themselves, the cinemas themselves, are all lined, as I was saying, they're dressed. So the bottom cinema is done like it's just insulation, you know, sound insulation, acoustic insulation on directly onto the concrete frame, and then it's draped like a marquee or like a tent. It just goes over and over and over and down, right across the room, and then the front and back are mute. They're in black tissue paper. So it has and then when it goes upstairs, so yeah, it looks like that. It will look like that. Very simple. Sort of as I was saying, a kind of a economic drama. And then the middle one is done like layers and layers and layers, like a rah-rah skirt or something, just so it takes datums and just travels around the room. So this thing has, you know, about 250 mil depth of different layers, again of the same red fabric. So it ends up, you know, doing really kind of interesting things like this when it gets down here. And then finally, the top one, the curtain actually slides away. Oh, yeah, there it is. Slides away over your head as you come in. You come up that way there. And then this one is just wrapped around you, and it's got a pitched roof, which is done in, again, done in tissue with chamfered beads. And it's rigged like a theatre, and it has a little stage, as I said before. So it's just a detail of how directly the finishes are fixed to the ruin. So this is what it's like at the moment. It's just ready for all of that to be applied. And then this is the solar chimney at the side, the solar stack, which looks back down to the bar. And all of the windows in the building, which is really the kind of project of the building in a way. I mean, the cinema in itself is a big window, of course, a very big oblong. And so the question of then how do you express it became an idea about windows, and then maybe you could gel windows in the way that they gel cameras and they gel scenes when they're shooting movies, that we could make atmosphere by adjusting the color of the light as it came in, the natural light, and then indeed that at night time when the lights are on, that it starts to become sort of a magic lantern. So this is what happens. These are all the windows bar one in the building are gelled, or they have resin color in them. This is the back stairs as it moves back down. As I was saying, it's this kind of contorted metal staircase, very clangy, shot views. And again, it's in a large, tall, untempered space. So that would be where that fodder was. That window there will have a line of green neon in it. And then that goes right down to the tea room. This is the tea room is a hall of mirrors. This forced perspective of opening vents here wraps all the way around the room, and then with the chandelier, so it becomes a kind of a carousel of mirrors and pictures and cakes and all of that. So you can see it here. So all the joinery, which is kind of chamfered again, and travels around like that. But you can see how it starts to fit together and become another kind of an architecture on a lesser order than the main frame, if you like. So so you can see that the screen at the bottom comes in and wraps around to make the room and carries on off and leads you as far as it can. And that's the chandelier there, very shallow chandelier. And then the depth is exploited. And again, more or less the same party as the overall building. The depth is exploited for cash registers and cakes. And you get a little scene like this again, so that the thing feels like a set. And the bar does the same kind of carry on in a different way, where this one is interested in vision panels. The vision panel becomes the kind of motif as it travels around the room. And sometimes you can see through it and sometimes you can't. And the proportion of the vision panel is portrait of the proportion of the windows on the outside. So, and they're all Academy ratio, the adopted proportion of a cell of film. So in the bar, it becomes again this kind of set. It's theatrical stage set with deep space, drop down, and shallow space, and sometimes full space, and the thing just kind of moves around in what's effectively just two geometries, but it has to pick up this space is kind of consequential of all of the orders that are above it, and all of the orders that are below it. So it can become spatially quite choppy and quite complex. Like T Nocton in Galway, which has these layers and layers. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. This kind of stuff and this kind of thing. But it also starts to do stuff like this as well. So the thing becomes very additive and very oddly ergonomic and intimate and complex and capable of being roughly used and repaired and added to. So then the windows in the bar, for instance, they're all coded. So in the bar they're amber, as they would be traditionally in an Irish bar. I don't know about here. You'd always use a yellow stained glass or an amber stained glass, so that the afternoon goes on forever or something. I don't know. And then obviously the main staircase is red, and then the back staircase is blue-greens. This is the chimney from the bar, so the hot air rises through that, but anybody going to the cinema from the back stairs is looking back down into that through grey glass. So on the facade you can read that's what's happening there. That's the bar, they're all yellow. That's the snug. These are reds going up the staircase here. These are greens going up that back staircase there. And that's the tea room once again. And then the windows themselves are just, all the detailing is very robust and as simple as it possibly can be. Just the 6mm sheets of plate, galvanized as the sill directly into just Iroko, over-detailed casements which tilt. So you can see that main staircase now kind of again starts to implicate the facade and cut away. So into the foyer here, where the kiosk is on your left. It's fun you can see how small this thing is. I mean, 25 people really fill it. So people are going to be pressed up those staircases and around and through. That's where we were coming in there. That's the kiosk again. Some detailing of that. I suppose I should say that's the biggest piece of glass we could get in Ireland. So that's one very big window, and you're served under it. So there's a big sign there saying, now showing. And then that's the relationship with the archway again. And then that's the little window to the snug. So that's like a masticuli in a tower house, a murder hole. So you can kind of cover the entrance and watch to see when your friend arrives or if they're going to show up at all. And it kind of the consequences of the strategies then become somehow the architecture. This is the only window that's clear all the way up through. This one looks across at a cast, which I'll show you in a minute, on this face here. And that's that window looking down. So again, there's this kind of, the observer and the observed is very much an interest in the building. So that's the front door. And that's as you come around and you start going up those stairs. There's a vitrine up there. There's a little trophy that goes into that. And that's that other half of that window that was on the outside of the snug looking through. So again, we're still kind of outside. And this is this continues on as posters. So looking down from that window, this is the kind of thing that you see. And then as you turn on that landing, you see this red window. Now the windows are all by the windows were all done with Patrick Scott, who's dead now, unfortunately, and they were made by Eric Pierce. So as I was saying, all 25 windows are adjusted, and this one in particular looks at. Oh, that sculpture, I thought it was the next slide, sorry. But anyway, you're going up the staircase. So you can see where we can, like even though that's the regulation staircase and they're all minimum dimensions, it is literally a house. Where we flood it out so that there are propositions of maybe sitting and congregating in places that are sort of ambiguous between the regulations and kind of reality. So this then is the office that it's a one-way mirror so that the person who runs the place can see who's coming in and out, and this squeezes up here. So that's that window looking at the cast, which is about a metre opposite of into the gable of a 16th century, I think, bas relief of a woman standing on the moon with her head, around her head, stars, which is from the Book of Revelations, I believe, but seemed very appropriate for a cinema. So the window then this is it from the inside, blinded, but you can see that it's detailed in a sort of heavy way and chamfered so that it sits sort of slightly proud of the concrete face, and actually to allow it to be picture frames in the, we all love the stories of Villa Malaparte and the detailing of the picture frame and so on, to just make them super big and to, I suppose, make people kind of conscious of what they're looking through, and also to relate to the amount of concrete that they're generally surrounded by. So when before we built it, we were asked to take part in an exhibition in the Venice Biennale in 2008. So we thought we'd make a little model of the cinema and that we'd make a film for it. So my friend Peter Mabry made this film of a lady watching a film. There's no, and then he made a soundtrack, which is of the, there are only, I think, 8 standard sounds for a soundtrack. It's footsteps, and it's a dog barking, and it's children laughing, and so on. They were all used in I think in Russian researchers in the 1930s for propaganda, the kind of manipulation of the emotions through overlay of soundtrack on flat image. So we have Marie-Pierre, her eyes are flickering and she's watching something, but we don't know what she's watching. But we're watching her. But weirdly, there's somebody else watching us, but we don't know that. So it's that kind of thing of being in pictures in the gallery. I don't know if you've ever found that. You might go to see a show and you're looking at the pictures and you find there's somebody standing beside you looking at the same picture, and it's vaguely uncomfortable, but kind of vaguely interesting as well. That you're sharing this thing, but you're complete strangers. And cinema is a little like that, I think. You go into a room and you sit down with complete strangers in the dark and watch something that's generally very intimate. So we were interested in that proximity and that kind of delicious kind of disquiet. So we make this. So this is kind of a model of the cinema. And then, of course, the implication of the surrounding architecture in the palazzo become implicated when you look down. It's a one-way mirror with a computer playing, but the whole thing becomes implicated when you look into it with the image which is recorded, which I think is really what we're trying to do. So it becomes something that has. This is a speaker, basically, that you lean into, made out of speaker fabric with loads of speakers in there, so the sound is really good when you lean into it. And then this is Academy Ratio portrait, and that's Academy Ratio landscape. And then this is kind of the same idea as the cinema itself. You just put a pitch on it, and it's a monument, and it just kind of deals with floors and deals with various things. And so that really, so there are the drawings of it as an opened out, but that really confirmed that maybe all the windows could be pictures, and that the repetition could be somehow cinematic. So when we were working it out, then it just became, well, how do you constellate the windows around the program? Not necessarily that you could make the spaces first and then cut the windows through them, rather than the normal way, I think. And so that generated particular relationships and quite opportunistic situations. And there it is. That's the detail in itself. Not a great deal to it. And then there's the unfolded elevation. So it becomes quite compositional when you're looking at those facades, trying to make them work in a three-dimensional object. And then they do very interesting things to the town itself. These are all the bar ones, the circles. That's Eric Pierce in the background, who made them. So this one, the last one, is on its side because we made a sample of it, and I thought it'd be really nice to use it somewhere else on its side. So we made this opening in another place, so that it would fit the window sample. It's a concrete building, but this is an old concrete building. This is concrete from 1905. This is beach concrete, so there's no rebar in it. There's no reinforcing bar. There's no steel in it. It's just rocks. It's like the concrete that I imagine is in Taliesin, Frank Lloyd Wright's thing. It's really beautiful texture, really extraordinary. Beach stones. And it's very strong if it's got a corner, and you can cut it more or less any way you like. But freestanding, it won't last. So this goes into this room here, which is a bedroom. And in this building, we broke out the whole interior. The inside of it's broken away, and new concrete cruciform is put into it. And then that cruciform goes up through it and top lights. This is a wash hand basin and a toilet. So this is the plan. So you get a hall, stairs up, a bedroom, leading to another bedroom, leading to a bath, leading to a wash hand basin and a toilet, and back to the hall. Then you go up into this room, which is it's a very strange building because it's a traditional. It's an old building, but it's got a square plan. It's a 7 by 7 meter square plan, so it means that these purlins have to be propped in the middle by this big T. So, and the new architecture, the new concrete architecture comes up through it, and then we cut a hole, one hole to view the sea through here. And this is actually a kitchen counter that you come up under, and then it's got very peculiar views through that opening. It's a picture window again, but you can see it's just been sawn like a cartoon. It's just been sawn out and pushed down. And then this is the kitchen being cast, all in concrete, so that it does this. Yeah, top lights, sink, cookers and so on, big counter, up you come, there's that window there, stove, that's that post. So that building looks like this on the outside. It has very nice facades, 4. And then it does this as an object, which is compelling. All the ground has been really changed, and the building's more or less left the same. And then beyond it, you can see there's another building. But then this facade, where we block up pieces, we put kind of a new elevation through it. So the one opposite it does the same thing. This is a studio. So you have a window and a door. So it becomes, you come in here, so the toilet is open. If you go into the toilet, you open the door to the kitchen. And then this comes in here. It's a library, stove, big table for drawing. So it starts to become then concrete, loose gravel, and plywood, and a sink, and this big new attic structure that goes in here. And it's really just very, very direct approach to aggregate and how you use it. And then where walls are cut, and then new pores put into it to make stoves and so on, up against old doors, very direct. And then, so it starts to do, there's really nasty block work up here and so on, but somehow as a piece, the thing starts to become three-dimensional. And the roof of the building is very simple but very good. And then we make new opes like this through the old wall and this in a new wall, and how they meet. You get pieces of aggregate exposed where you find them. And then views down and out into a garden and more walls. And you start to see that it makes kind of walled gardens, but they're not quite touching, and then starts to pour. So basically this becomes a courtyard, that building, and a new building, which a retaining wall is made. So ultimately this is a living room, this is bedrooms, and this is a studio. This is a courtyard, ramped down to a kitchen garden. So you get three little buildings talking to one another in a plan of about an acre of garden and ruins. So if I was to walk you around it very quickly, I'm just going to show you some pictures of that. So this is a kitchen garden. So that's a studio, yeah? Courtyard, studio, down. Kitchen garden, down. Orchard, tea house. Bamboo gardens, pool, a white forest, the kitchen, as I say. If I come up here, then there's a pyramid here. Down here, this is a pond in a building, and then there's a little kind of a Derek Jarman type garden there. This is a potting shed. Over that is a guest house, guest garden, through here and up. There's kind of a pump house here, up through this little, I don't know what that building is, like a little shed, and then back up into this triangulated garden. This garden is granite, this garden is limestone. The Sugarloaf is up here, which is our Mount Fuji, and down here is the sea. So it starts to, and then the paths are walls as well. They're just sunken walls. So, you know, and then that's the kitchen garden. This is a little pool here with a rocky shore and this kind of thing. So you start seeing, this is obviously, it will, you know, in 10 years' time it will be something else, but you can see the old orchard here is enveloped as Hortus conclusus, and then things that start to add to it. So the buildings kind of stay the same, and the ground changes. And it starts to make spaces then, almost like a lane, and a room, and a parlour, and so on, but all on a miniature scale, and borrowing then pieces of landscape like the sea beyond, or small pieces of walls. Bray, the Sugarloaf. You know, this is actually cutting out pieces of stuff that we did put in and weren't right. That, you know, that was a building. It's now that's now called Tenerife because it's very hot. When you make walls, they make microclimates. So the kind of microclimate of this place now has completely changed, where you can grow papyrus there and grow, you know, household plants there, whereas you couldn't before because of the walls. And of course they make shadows as well, and they make dark places and wet places. So it actually amplifies the condition in both directions. It makes for difference. Quince tree. That's papyrus. These are field stones arranged as a cloister. Apple trees are amazing, aren't they? Pear trees there as well, gage trees. Some of these photos are much older and some of them are more recent, but this is a little tea house there on the little parlour. This is the most important moment. In a way, this is the bottom of the hill because there's a 14 metre change of level between the top of the side and the bottom of the side. So when you get down to the bottom of the site, this wall is 2 metres high, which is exempt in terms of planning law in Ireland. It's a garden wall. But it means that when you get to this point, there's no sea, there's just the sky and that angle. And then one turns and looks back up. And then stuff that's demolished isn't taken off the site. We just build it up to make terraces. So you can see the retaining wall for the new building coming along there. And then this is the pyramid planted in sedums, but it speaks to the sugar loaf in the distance, I think. And that's that little pond in the building. This is Ferox. This is the potting shed looking out into the Ferox. It's a staircase up to the guest house. That's the room as it is. It will be simply just a timber-lined room, insulated, a new roof. So it will be a cabin within a ruin, that view. So it sits up there. So that's how you get to it. So again, you can see this kind of cutting and forcing of perspectives through what were old sheds. So that's Dysart there. You can see it. There's the walled garden. The Sugarloaf is up here. The sea is down there. That's the road to Greystones. Thank you very much.
So, would you like to take a few questions?
Sure.
Does anyone have any questions? We had some leftover interview questions from YouTube before.
We have this class this semester. It is called Filming Architecture, and it's not actually about the architecture in the movies, as one may presume, but it's like more about the architecture of the place where it is shown, so the cinema, and it tries like to explore the relation between the movie and the architecture of the place where it is shown, so the room where it is shown. And I was asking myself if you also came across of questions like this when you were planning the cinema, to see if like the cinema can be more than a dark room with bad acoustics where you see them watch a movie, or it can be more and maybe relate to the movie a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, that famous Vertov, isn't it? That quote, "I am kino, I am cinema." I mean, it's sort of, that's architecture, isn't it? That's what we're talking about. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I was always looking for the multiplication of the situation in the building, every time. Push it, a deep space, shallow space, as quickly as possible, and cutting it as fast as possible, and making it benignly confusing. And then just physically, I mean, by having untempered spaces, and tempered spaces, you know what I mean? That you've got your coat on until you open the door when you're into the cinema, and your eye, you know, getting it to get darker, so that it's gentle, and in particular when you come out, that you come out into a space that's not too bright, and all of that, and the still color, and then making this front staircase kind of like, I don't know, in my mind, like a landscape, or you know, like like a scene from an Eisenstein or something. And then the back staircase is the classic kind of fire escape, isn't it? With all the noise and all the clatter, and it's roiling around and around. All of that, absolutely, all the time. Yeah, very interested in that. Very interested in the sound of it and how it looks. And I had the advantage because it's a small town and everybody knows everybody else and everybody knows everywhere else, that one could let it meander a little bit. Does that make sense? A longer. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But even if it's not a cinema, I would always think like that. Sure. It's a. It's a. It's a. You know, if you look at castles and things like that, and you look at all those old diagrams about ballistics, you know, and how different kinds of strategies for defense developed, and therefore how the architecture then responded to that, you know, from star forts, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing. It's still optics, it's still point of view. You know, Berger's way of seeing, I mean, that thing of, that's what I really liked about the Tower House analogy, but of course you can't talk about it with well, you can only speak about things like that when you're asked about it. But I would have thought that, you know, that kind of the idea of a castle and the slit and the sniper and the cinema and, you know, they're all entwined. They're all very, very entwined, I think. You know? And then extending that, this thing about the date and who you're with and who you're seen with and who you're not seen with, and having a backstairs so you can do this kind of farcical kind of in and around without getting caught and all that stuff. It's very much about the town, isn't it? Does that help? Yeah.
With the cinema and its relation to the street, you used words such as anxious and all these like, almost human traits, and whether that's something that informs your designs.
Yeah, I think so. Without becoming silly, I would be trying to animate them. Yeah, I would think I would be trying to. Well, it's just a way of talking about what they need to do, isn't it? But so it's kind of a shorthand. But yeah, I would kind of call them things to see, then see if it works, see if it fits, to try and push it into positions that it fit into. And sometimes standard lexicon doesn't work. Modernist lexicon is useless for things like that. There's no scheme, you see. Like that building doesn't have, it's too small to have a scheme. So the only scheme it has is the party that I told you about. But after that then, it's on its own. So you just have to work it out step by step through the building and trust and manipulate and make sure that it's ergonomically very satisfying, step by step, because there's no big scheme. There's no diagram. You can't say to somebody, yeah, it's a servant diagram, enjoy. You know, so you have to actually entertain them all the way through that house. I think.
I have a question about your approach to confusion, or what you just described about not having a scheme. The spaces you've shown us appear quite confusing, and yet you have this very deliberate lexicon of how you puncture the confusion.
Hmm.
Do you have any tools that yourself to balance that? Because of course you have to be both when you're developing. Confused and
Oh, they're all well. Not that one isn't, but the cinema is all done in 1:50 models, if that's what you mean. Yeah, so it's all modelled a lot, because the great anxiety would be that it's too confusing, that it doesn't work, that it snags, and that it's therefore not loved, and therefore it's changed, and you lose. So one can't take the risk of it being like, it's a fine line between it being pleasant or rich or complex and it just being annoying. So yeah, I would be very conscious of that, yeah, and actually very careful about that. So the narrative, yeah, might appear a little laissez-faire, but I know that it works because I've people who do it. It is actually quite relaxed. Quite.
how do you look at your models when you make them?
Oh.
Do you have a special approach to your models? I mean, do you allow yourself a sectional model where you open it up like a doll's house? Would you force it to remain closed?
Oh yeah, no, it's rooms. Yeah, no, I don't open it. We did do one like that. Generally, I like just the rooms. I like to see I just want to look up into the rooms. I just wanted to see what the rooms are like, and where, with staircases that are moving around like that, to get, like say that front one comes up and two walls close, and it just manages the gap like a bridge, and then it's a doorway, and then it comes in, and then you go up. Just getting that right, and just making sure that the handrail can stop just before it hits the wall, and still, that kind of thing. We'd be studying that with models, big models, big rough throwaway models. Nothing too fancy, very quick ones.
When you talk about confusion, it's also related to complexity, I think, and I wonder if there's some dialogue that, for example, in that project that you showed, that you have decision and you experiment, but they bring and make decisions afterwards. Because when you show the photos, there's so complex situations. I wonder if you make them up, like you say, you want to learn a lot, or there's some kind of process that develops to sometimes really
Yeah, the Dicer project is done without any drawings or any models. It's just done. Very limited drawings of, say, the interior works, but all the exterior works is just done it's just done by eye, and so it's a garden, so it plays for complexity, and it's a garden like, in the sense of Hadrian's Villa is a garden. It's that kind of level of it, where architecture is compounding on itself and making space between itself and other things. So it revels in not knowing quite where you are.
Unless we have any further questions, I'd like to thank you very much. It's a great closing statement. Yeah, thank you very much.